Hello. Are you looking to do print output from your SharePoint list? If you are, this is the video for you. SharePoint does not provide print capabilities directly in SharePoint. You've got to do some extra steps. And there are a few different approaches that you can use. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 possible methods to get print output from your SharePoint list. We're first going to look at exporting to Excel and using Excel to produce our PDF, which we can print. The second thing we'll look at is we're going to look at doing it directly in the browser. This is using SharePoint Online and using a special list formatting template that sets it up for printing. The third method, which we'll cover last, is using Power Automate to set up a workflow process to generate a PDF for us from that SharePoint list. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Excel. That's going to be our first process. Now let's get SharePoint smart. Okay, here I am in my SharePoint Online environment, and I've got my help tickets list, and this is what I want to send to a printout. I want to get this into a PDF, which I can print from. And the first thing I need to do, of course, is make sure I've got the columns that I want included in this printout that I'm going to do. So I've already set up my list view to include those columns. So make sure you adjust your list view so it's filtered to show just the records you want and just the columns you want for that before you proceed to the next step. Once you've done that, you can just go up to this command bar. You're going to see that Excel icon, and you can just click on the export and then select export to Excel. This is going to go ahead and generate a IQY file. It's a file named query.iqy, and this is something which when you click on it, it's just going to query your SharePoint list for that data. Once you've done that, go ahead and save your file as an ordinary Excel workbook. So I'm just going to go to Save As, and I'm going to just call this SharePoint SP List Print. You can call it anything you want to. But the idea here is that I wanted to get it out of that IQY format. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and delete that original query.iqy file. Now we're just using a regular Excel workbook. The next thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and get rid of these last 2 columns for item type and path. This is kind of some extra information that automatically gets downloaded, but we really don't have a wish to see that in our printout. So make sure you delete those columns. Now we're ready for our next step. And we want to deal with the layout. So up in your tabs in Excel, you want to make sure that you go to page layout. And on there, we're going to see some options in the upper left that are of particular interest to us. So you should start by clicking on themes, and notice there's lots of different options for themes to control the look and feel of your output. So of course, it's up to you. You should choose something you like. There's other related settings. You can go to the colors and select from that, or you can also go to fonts, and there's different fonts that you can pick. So very easy to tweak that according to your preferences. So make those look and feel adjustments first in the page layout section, and then in those options in the upper left corner. Okay, the next thing I need to do has to do with the header on our printout. So we've got these column headers, and I want to see that first row on the top of every page of that PDF document and on the printout. So that it's easy to look at that information. So I do need to make an adjustment so that I can make sure that it repeats that on every page. And the way I can do that is by going to this print title option. And at that point, I need to go to this field called rows to repeat at top. Okay, and I click on the button and it's gonna ask me, okay, which row do you want? And I just click on the number 1 because I want that header row. Then I can click this button on the right, and that's all that I need to do there. I can just click OK, and we're ready for the next step. Okay, at this stage, what you should do, you can hit Control P or select your print option. And now I need to make some adjustments in my print settings to get exactly the output that I want. The first one is you want to switch to a landscape orientation. That's going to allow your content to be able to stretch out from left to right, and you're definitely going to need that extra real estate. The other thing I want to be sure to do is adjust the scaling. I want to make sure I can see all of those columns fit in instead of it being clipped on the side as it is right now. So that's pretty easy. Just go to the scaling options and you want to do fit all columns on one page. Okay, and now you can see it's kind of crunched down. So it's a little bit hard for me just to read my preview, but this is going to be adjusted according to your columns, but it's going to basically make sure that it all will squeeze in for you. So I've made that adjustment, and then at this stage, I'm pretty much ready to go. You can see in the print preview, go ahead and confirm by paging through that. You'll notice that my header column labels are showing on each page, which is very good. That's going to make sure that it's not confusing if I'm on the 4th page and I can't really see what column corresponds to what, that type of thing. At this point, you're pretty much ready to go. I can go ahead and select print. And I would recommend that you do the print to PDF, and that will, just download a file to your desktop. So when I was doing print, make sure for your output option, instead of your printer, there is a special option, Microsoft Print to PDF. Okay, so that's the one that's going to produce a PDF document for us. And when you click that, you can go ahead and give it a name. So I'm going to stick with my naming convention. I'll do SP list print, but now I'm making a PDF file of what I have in Excel. And it does it very quickly. And I'll go ahead and save my changes, but pretty much once I've done these steps, I don't need the workbook anymore. Now, on my computer, I've got my PDF file. I'll go ahead and open that up and we can take a peek at that real quick. Here's my PDF, and I can either just use this. If this is my end output that I need, that's great. Or if I want to send that to the printer, I can just do normal printing from Adobe Reader. At this stage, I'm good to go. So those are all the steps that you need for that. So in terms of overall process, that's good in terms of, from any SharePoint list, you can fairly quickly repeat and go through these steps. But you would need to do this every time you've got, a refresh the list. So every step that I showed in that process, you're going to repeat all of those steps anytime you've got a change in the data and you want to repeat. So that's pretty much the first method that we need to talk about. So generally speaking, a pretty easy to follow process. There's some good and some bad with that. We'll kind of contrast as we go through our other 2 methods for printing. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our next method, which is getting our print output directly from the browser using a list formatting template. So now we're going to go ahead and jump to our next method of printing, and that is printing directly from the browser using a formatted list template. So let me go ahead and jump back to SharePoint. And in this case, I'm going to set up a special formatted view in SharePoint so that I can just invoke the print command directly from my browser, and that will let me get PDF output without having to export to Excel first. Okay, so in order to take advantage of this template, just like before, I need to have all my columns set up in my view, and make sure it's just showing the records that I want. And at that point, I'm ready to apply a list formatting template. In order to use this, you would need access to the subscription at SharePointDashboards.com, and this will allow you to take advantage of a specific template, which is the print grid template. If you've not used SharePointDashboards.com, you can sign up for a free account, which will let you use 21 free templates. And this is one of the options that's included in there, and there's hundreds of templates available. So we're going to show how we can use that template to make printing easy for us in SharePoint. So what I need to do is enter some configuration settings to get a view template set up for my view. So the first thing I need to do is go in here and enter a title. So I'll say help tickets report, and you'll see a preview of how this is going to look up here. Another thing I know is I need to reduce my font size a little bit just based on the quantity of data that I'm going to be showing. And then I need to indicate the number of fields that I'm using. I've already counted mine, and I know there are 11 columns. I need to indicate how wide this is going to be. So I'm going to increase the default width to 1200, and then I'm now ready to apply my settings. There's lots of look and feel options. So you can see, for example, I've got an alternating background color on rows. It just makes things a little bit easier to read. I'm not going to play around with that in our steps, but you're welcome to adjust this to get whatever look and feel you want. So like our previous method, you can style this if you want to use a different font or use different colors, that type of thing. All of that is configurable by just clicking on the buttons in this configuration area in the template. So the next thing I need to do is go ahead and provide those SharePoint field names. There are 11 that I need to enter, and I can just start putting those in now. So we've got ID, cost, title, and then I've got requester, color, and status. We want to be very careful to make sure we put these in precisely correct. Otherwise, it won't work. It won't read the data. So make sure you're careful on this step. And then after that, we've got request date, modified, and approved. And then the last two have special names in SharePoint. In the interface, they're referred to as created by and modified by, but their internal field names have special names. So that is author and editor. And the instructions in this template in the bottom will kind of help remind you of some of those things in case you're wondering. Okay, so I've entered all my configuration data, and we have a preview. It shows us how it's going to look. I just need to click the copy template button. I'll follow the instructions in this box. Now I'm ready to go to my view, and I'm going to go to the view selector, and I'll select format current view, click advanced mode, and select the code, and then paste. And that'll paste in the code coming from SharePoint Dashboards. And it looks like it's a little bit out of whack. Let me try and see what's going on there. I know exactly what I did. I didn't provide my column widths, and you have to do that. So there's 11 columns, and this sets the percentage widths on the columns. So let me do that real quick. I think I have that right. There's one more here. Okay, and it's easy to make adjustments. I can just repeat my step and select my code and replace. And now things look a little bit more normal. Okay, so my print grid is ready to go. I'm still gonna wanna make some tweaks though, in terms of how wide columns are. For example, ID doesn't need to be very wide at all, but I would definitely like a little bit more room for the request column. So I can kind of make some adjustments. So if I go in here, I could say, well, ID really could be 3% the width, and that gives me 2 to add to the third column. And I can just make little incremental adjustments until I get this view tweaked to look just exactly how I want. Notice the modified kind of trails over a little bit. So what I could do is maybe take a little bit from the column after that and adjust that. So I can just go in here and I can, move that down to 8 and do 12 for that. And then just keep recopying the template and then apply it on here. And then you can get everything to look however you want. Okay, so it does take a little tweaking up front, but now I've got a view set up on this list where I can print from this anytime I want to. I will not have to repeat any steps like I did in Excel. This will update when my data updates, and I don't need to go anywhere outside of my browser to do this. So I simply can just do the print command in my browser. It'll show me a preview, and just like in Excel, I'm going to use the Microsoft Print to PDF, and I can just get the same type of output. So we do want to go to more settings. Depending on what your screen looks like, you may need to make some adjustments. One thing you need to make sure you have turned on is background graphics. Otherwise, those colors aren't going to come through. And then if needed, you can make tweaks to the scaling, for example. You can see in my case, everything's fitting on the page fine, but if you want to, you can tweak that. You can do default or custom, and then you can bump up that setting up and down according to however you want. So this is how I want it to be. It's going to output to PDF. When I click that print button, it's going to ask me where I want to save that. I did one just previously, so I'm going to call it SP List Print 2, and yes, I'll replace that. It'll do that very quickly, and I can now check my file. And what you'll notice is that the output for this file is very similar to what we just did for Excel. There it is. I can share that file with my coworkers or print it off however I want. So you've completed everything if you got through those steps. And I don't have to repeat this. So if a week or 2 weeks from now I want to come back and I want to do a list print from this list, I don't need to go through any export steps, any of that kind of thing. I can simply go to this view and just select print and just print it off immediately. So that's going to be very efficient. So that pretty much covers everything on our second method to print from a SharePoint list. And again, that requires a template, which you can download from SharePointDashboards.com. So I hope you'll check out that site. There's a lot of very cool things available there. And the third method that we're going to get into is probably the most involved method in terms of there are some technical steps. And this is going to be taking a look at a workflow method that will be done using Power Automate. So we're going to go into those steps and look at how you would set that up and the reasons why in some cases you might want to use that method. All right, now we're ready to get to our third and final method to get print output from SharePoint, from a SharePoint list. And this is going to be using Power Automate to do a automated workflow to go ahead and produce PDF output just based on using a command option from the SharePoint command bar in a list view. So let's go ahead and dig in. All right, so here I am back in SharePoint, and this is my list where I want to do my printing. So what I'm going to do is first of all show you what it is that we're making so that you can understand, why we're doing the various steps. So when this is complete, it will give you the ability to check next to an item, and then you can go to the automate option in the command bar, and you're going to see this workflow that we're going to create. In my case, I called it Print Help Tickets Report. And when you click on that, the side panel is going to open, and you just simply click OK or Run Flow, and it will go ahead and kick off that workflow. And what you'll see is that it's going to automatically query that list, get all those list items, and it's going to create two files here in my Word templates library. One is a Word document of the output, and then additionally, it's going to go ahead and make a PDF output of that content as well. So if I just do a refresh here, there is my PDF output. So I'll go ahead and click on this just to show you what we're going to get. So there is my PDF automatically generated and sent to that SharePoint document library. Now, you can go ahead and use, different methods. You could send it to email, for example. That would be fine. But I'm just sending it to a document library in my case. So here, let me duplicate that. All right, back to my help tickets report. Okay, so now we're going to walk through the steps and show you how to do this. Now, the thing that you want to know, first of all, is that this particular flow requires what's known as premium connectors. And this is populating the Word template and then also converting from Word to a PDF. And as of this video, this is a $15 per month charge for the user. So it's additional charge. You only need the premium license for one user, the person who's creating the workflow. But this is not going to be possible if you just have the base Power Automate plan. All right, so now we're ready to dive in. Let's go to Microsoft Word and we'll walk through all the steps required to set up the template in Word. So the first thing is when you get into Word, you need to make sure your developer tab is available in the toolbar. If you don't see that, the way you can enable it is to right click on any of the tabs in the toolbar, click Customize the ribbon, and in this window, you'll see the developer option. So you just check that box, click OK, and you should be good to go. So make sure you have the developer tab enabled. And then the next thing we can do, just like our other print templates, is we're going to change the layout to a landscape orientation just based on the nature of the content that we're doing. And now we're ready to insert a table. And I'm going to just go to the Insert tab and we'll do a 5x2 table. I'm going to do less columns this time just to make life a little bit easier for me. And that way, we don't have to spend a long time doing the setup. So I'm just going to reference this one that I previously created. Just help me do things a little more quickly. So the fields I'm going to do are ID, cost, request, requester, and color. And then I'm going to repeat these fields in all caps on the second row. The reason I'm using all caps will be a little bit more clear as I go along, but basically these are going to be referenced in my Power Automate workflow. Okay, and now the next thing I want to do is give it some styling, just like we did with the other printing. So I'm going to just select one of those options. Of course, you can pick whatever you want. You can tweak your font size, font family, the colors, all those type of things. And then now I'm ready to insert some field references. The way you go about that, you need to highlight the fields in your second row, and you're going to go to the developer tab, and we will see a section where you'll see different controls, and that's what we're interested in this part of the process. The second option there, if you hover over it, just says plain text content control, and that's what we're going to use for all 5 of these fields. So just go ahead and click that, and then go to properties and just repeat that all caps field name for your reference and click OK. And I'm going to repeat that for each of these fields. So same thing for cost. I use that second option, go to properties, cost and cost, both for title and tag name. Now I can go to the third one for request and go to properties, request, and hit OK. And then now I'll go to requester, go to properties. Whoops. Try that again. Okay, go to properties, requester, and then we got one more for color. Okay, there's color. Okay, and there's one other thing we're going to do before we're done with this Word template that we're creating. And what I need to do is highlight this entire second row And there's another type of control, which is called the repeating section content control. And we need that for the repeating rows coming from SharePoint. So go ahead and click on that. And just like the other ones, I want to go to the properties. In my case, I'm going to call this table rows. And hit OK. Just go ahead and save that out and you're done with your template. Now, once you've done that, you're ready to load that into SharePoint. So what you want to do is create a special library in SharePoint. In my case, I called it Word Templates, but you can call your library wherever you want. And then I uploaded it here. So I worked on this previously, and I have my template, and I had called it listprint2.docx. All right, so once you've done all these steps, you're ready to dig into your Power Automate workflow. And here's my workflow. As I mentioned, it uses premium connectors. I have to have a professional license for Power Automate, not the base plan, in order to do this type of workflow. So I'm going to go into my workflow and we're going to go through all the steps and talk about how you can set this up. In order to get this option appearing in the command bar, where when I check an item and then click on the automate and have it appear as an option there, I need to use a special trigger, which is the for a selected item trigger. Make sure that is the trigger that you set up when you're first creating your workflow, and then you'll be ready to do the next steps. So after that flow block, the next thing is getting all of the items for the SharePoint list. So it's going to ask you in which site your list is located, then what is the name of the list. I like to add a filter query ID not equals 0, and that just avoids a warning that it would give me otherwise. In my case, I just want to tell it to give me all the rows. So all of the rows, they don't have an ID of 0, so this is just to suppress a warning that you get in Power Automate if you don't use that, because it likes you to use filter queries. Okay, third step. This is a a query operation, and you're going to be using the select option. And this will be selecting the fields out of that output that we just got in the previous step. Notice I typed in the name of the fields in all caps, and this is what will allow our workflow to map the SharePoint data to the Microsoft Word template that we created. So I have all caps for those ID, cost, requests, just like we put into the Word document. And then you just need to browse to the fields in your output from that get items from your SharePoint list. Once you've done that, it's going to set us up for the next step. And this is the first of those two premium connector blocks. This is populate a Microsoft Word template. And the way you use this, you need to tell it where your template is located. So recall that I had loaded this document to a library, which I called Word Templates, and then I just provided the name of the template. My template was called listprint2.docx. And then last is it's going to ask you how to map up the data. And notice that table rows in all caps that we reference. Now, when you first get to this flow block, it's going to show it in a vertical mode, but you want to toggle it back so you can match it up. So let me see if I can show you what that is like. This is what it looks like initially. You just need to toggle it out of that mode so that you can select the output from the previous step. So do make sure you do those steps. With that, we're ready to take that output and create a file. So this is the create file action in Power Automate. You're going to need to tell it where should the file be created. Normally this should go to another library. We don't want it to be mixed in the same place where we have our template. In my case, just in the interest of time, I just had it go to that same library. And then you need to provide the file name. Initially, we're creating a Microsoft Word document. You do need to make sure you use that docx file extension. It does need to be included in your file name. I used a static file name. If you used Power Automate before, you should have some familiarity and you know that you can do things like get references to the date. So you might like to include, the month, date, and year in there, or something else dynamic, so that as it's producing more and more of these documents, it wouldn't overwrite, a previous printout that you had created. So that will get us all the way to the Word document, which we saw automatically get generated and dropped in the library. In order to get that PDF, we have a couple more blocks. So the next one is a special, again, premium connector block, which is called Convert Word Doc to PDF. And that simply takes a Word document as an input. It asks us where that's located, and you would be referencing the file name that should be identical to the previous step. In other words, the file that it just created and dropped in the library. And as you would think, it's going to go ahead and convert that into PDF output. But we also need to tell it how to save that. So as a final step, we tell it where to save the PDF file and what to name it. So naturally, you want to follow the same kind of a naming convention. And again, you do need to include the file extension. You need to put that .pdf on the end of the file name. It asks us what we're using, and it is the output of the previous block. And that's it. That's everything that's needed for the flow, which will automatically generate this output. Now, I sent to a Microsoft SharePoint library, but you could also set this up to email your output to users automatically. You could also set this up to run on a schedule. Maybe you'd want this to run weekly or something like that. So naturally, since we're doing this as a part of workflow, there are going to be more options available for you from that standpoint. Okay. So that covers our 3 methods for getting print output from our SharePoint list. So some very different approaches. There are good and bad with each method. So if you've never done this before, probably it makes sense to start by just go ahead and learn the Excel method. It's not too difficult to understand. The downside to the Excel is that you do have to repeat all of those steps each time that you're going to do the printout. So you've got to go ahead and click the Excel button and get that query file out, go ahead and save it as a document, reformat. So that could eat up some time if you have to keep doing that over and over again. The second method was nice in that it's just direct. It's right from the browser, and once you have your list view formatting done, you're good to go. You'll never have to repeat those formatting steps. You can just go to that view in SharePoint and click print right in your browser and get that output anytime you want. So it doesn't involve the repetition of steps that you'd have to do with the Excel output. The third option is the automated workflow approach. That's the most technically involved, and there's going to be a lot more work up front, so that can make things a little bit difficult. But if you're interested in running things on a schedule, or if you're interested in automatically doing things like send the PDF reports by way of email to users, it's just another alternative path that you can use to get print output. So lots of possibilities. It's an interesting contrast between different methods. And this is all because SharePoint does not provide print functionality out of the box. So you have to do something to facilitate something that users are going to want to be able to do. So I hope you found that useful. If you like this video, please be sure to upvote and subscribe for more content on how to do cool things in SharePoint. And good luck.